Most people are too afraid to even admit that they are afraid. They think they are weak if they have fears. What they don't know is that all normal people have fears. It's not even a conscious choice. Only psychopaths don't have fears because their brains show some abnormalities. Fear is even the basis for something as beautiful as empathy. That's why psychopaths can't be empathetic either. What does lead to weakness, however, is not turning around your fears. So if you're not going to admit them in the first place, you won't be able to turn them around either. You get stuck with them unconsciously, and that can paralyze you. That's a pity because fear is such a wonderful tool, if you know how it works. Fear always reminds you of what you think is important in life. That's why you're never afraid about stuff you don't care about. Every time you're about to take action, fear reminds you of your core values, so you know which aspect still needs some of your attention. Fear doesn't want you to stop taking action. It just wants to remind you of something before you do take action. And it will make sure it gets heard. That's why fear is such a drama queen. Well, it simply does what it does best, making you afraid so you'd freeze for a moment and listen. Treat fear as your friend because its intentions are good. Look it straight in the eyes and filter out all the drama by doing the reality check. For example, is this really true, or can I find any examples that disprove my fear? And how can I take action keeping my values in mind? The things that remain after the reality check are the things you take into consideration when taking action. My formula: fear minus drama is need. And need is a product of your values. However, if you do ignore your fear, it will become your enemy. The drama remains deep inside, which paralyzes you after a while. So use fear for what it was built for, as a reminder of what you think is important when you need to take action. An example. 2 of my core values are freedom and love. When I was about to become self-employed, fearful thoughts started to pop up in my head. For example, running a company will leave no room for friends and family. Well, it got my attention there. What my fear actually was trying to tell me was, how are you going to manage your business and household so you still have time for things that are important to you? Fear doesn't want you to stop taking action. That's why it feels so uncomfortable when you do stop. So keep taking action once you've filtered out the drama by doing the reality check based on the how question. Become inspired, make a plan, and execute using baby steps. Now, having fear as your enemy will make you emotional. Now, when I say this, some people respond, but I want to be emotional. Believe me, you don't want to be emotional. And then I explain to them that what they probably mean is being empathetic. And that is what you become when you have fear as your friend. Now, what exactly is the difference between being emotional and being empathetic? Well, being emotional means that you are not able to recognize your own fears and your own thoughts. And what you then do every time the tsunami of emotion hits is put your surfboard on it. However, surfing on a tsunami is not only very tiring, it can also be very painful. Being empathetic, on the other hand, means that you are able to recognize your own fears and your own thoughts, and that you can turn them around into something that works for you. This skill enables you to recognize the fears of others as well. You understand their reactions and don't take them personally, because you realize they're in conflict with themselves, not with you. So past the drama, you'll discover their core values, and then a deeper communication becomes possible. That's what they mean with lead from within. Now, let me clarify the difference with another example. A scenario. A secretary gets a very unpleasant phone call at her job from an angry customer. Emotional scenario. The secretary forgets to do the reality check, and therefore she gets overwhelmed by her own fears. As a result, she takes all the customer's allegations personally and gets upset. After the phone call, she doesn't know what to do with herself, so she goes talking, rambling for half an hour with her colleague, who has to deal with all the negativity and then gets behind in her own work. The secretary rambles because she didn't take the necessary action within her own domain of control, which was recognizing her own fears and turning them around. The empathetic scenario. The secretary realizes that the customer is in conflict with himself, not with her. She does a reality check regarding his allegations and thinks about what his fear may be. For example, that the problem doesn't get solved, the goods won't be delivered on time, and that he maybe loses another customer while his wife is pregnant with a third child. This enables her to ask the right questions and to calm the customer down, because he feels that she's solid as a rock and is helping him the best she can. The secretary doesn't need to ramble after the phone call because she took all the necessary steps within her own domain of control, which was staying aware of the customer's internal conflict and his fears. This leads us to another big difference. Listening skills. Emotional people listen to react. They put the surfboard on the tsunami. Empathetic people listen to learn. They turn their thoughts around. And this learning has two possible directions. Either you get triggered by the things someone says to you, or you don't get triggered by something that someone says to you. In this case, there's what I call a hole in your ozone layer. Either you are linking your self-esteem to external factors, or there's a match with your values. Something that has been said is causing fear because you didn't take the necessary steps yet towards something you think is important. For example, you didn't figure out a plan B yet. And in this case, where you didn't get triggered, you learned something about the fears of the other. Now, emotional people take action while they are focused on the domain of control of the other. They link their self-esteem to the results of what's happening over there, and they ignore their fear, so it will take over unconsciously and make them react emotionally. This is fear talking. You become the drama. They don't find out why they got triggered in the first place and what action they should have taken, which was identifying your own fears and turning them around into something that works for you. This reacting instead of learning and acting will let you make the same mistakes over and over again. Now you probably understand why it's not that wise to link your self-esteem to opinions. Other people's thoughts and hence most pieces of advice are filled with fears others would have if they would be standing in your shoes. Never let the fears of others stop you. Stay alert. It are their fears, not yours. Always keep that in mind when asking for advice or feedback. And should there be a piece of advice that triggers you, make sure you filter out the drama first. Take action instead of reacting. Think, look for different ways. And if an obstacle comes your way, then rely on your capacity to steer your actions at that very moment. Now, if you want to find out how to gain mental power? Watch my next video.